This is Michael Spedden, and welcome to Fowl Players Radio, your one-stop shop for all of your pop culture needs. We feature interviews from musicians, actors, comics, dancers, authors, and much, much more, up-and-coming artists and beloved favorites. We've got it all, people on stage, backstage, out front, and behind the scenes. Sit back and relax. Let's have some fun. Folks, Michael Spedden here, and welcome back to Fowl Players Radio, season number 11. We've got 11, and tonight our guest is Greg Sinners. He's come back again to talk to us. He's been a guest on here several times before, and he's always a pleasure to talk to because he's got lots of great stories about the old Baltimore music scene, what it was like playing around here years ago, and lots of stories that a number of listeners have told me they've really enjoyed. So he's back tonight to talk about his new song, When I'm Here. We talked about the recording of the song itself, who performed on it with him, and the video that's out. There's a lot of great footage of both personal of him and his cousins and his family, and the area in general where we both kind of grew up, the Baltimore metro area. So Greg rejoined us tonight, and I had a great time talking to him and everything. You can find his material www.gssongs.com as well as on YouTube. It's www.youtube.com/@Greg Sinners, and you'll find his whole catalog of videos there as well. So, folks, we'll be back with Greg Sinners right after these words. Make sure you stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Keith Brewer from whatever band you please, the Ravens, Company of Wolves, Barley Juice, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio.
Hi, this is Keith Mack, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio.
And welcome back to another episode of Fowl Players Radio. Michael Spedden here, and we have a returning guest, a good friend, been on the show a number of times, has tons of stories, tons of great experiences to talk about, been making lots of great music for many, many years, and all the bands that he's been in, and now on his own with ensemble of various people. It's Greg Sinners is back to see us tonight. So, Greg, welcome back. Good to see you, bud. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Good to be back. Doing good.
Absolutely. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on here. I really enjoy when I can get folks that have great stories that are more than willing to participate and take the time to come on and share them. There's a lot of great history in our area that I really enjoy sharing, and there's a lot of people that really enjoy either hearing it for the first time or hearing it kind of again. They were sort of around or maybe peripherally there, that enjoy hearing it again or reminiscing about it. So again, I thank you for being with us today. So you've got some new material out, a new song that you want to talk about to us today. So tell us a bit about this and what the song is about. I've seen the video, and you've got a lot of old Baltimore imagery, which I really enjoyed in it. So tell us about the new song.
Well, it's called When I'm Here, and it is about Baltimore, or about me when I return to Baltimore to visit.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what it's about. It's about my life in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I used to live there, and I moved away 30 years ago.
Sure, yeah.
But when I go back to visit, that's what the song is about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about how, part of it at least is about how everything has changed so much.
Yes.
And the opening line in the song says, "Here I am to visit this old ground of mine. All that was has changed, and I am now a stranger."
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is when I go back to my old neighborhood, I don't know anyone there any longer. Everyone moved or died. And there's one person left. I presume he might remember me. He moved in, this neighbor I'm talking about moved in pretty close to around the time I was moving out.
Right. Sure.
So he probably would remember me, but I haven't seen him in 30 years.
Right. And I really understand where you're coming from on this, because first of all, the city at large, I moved out about 12 years ago, and I still go down there for work and business and things like that. But in particular, my old neighborhood, where my stomping grounds, the section I grew up in, I was in the county. I mean, it's drastically changed. Nobody's on my street anymore, or even in the, you know, central neighborhood. There's maybe a handful left.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the thing is that, you get to see how things change, I guess, physically or aesthetically.
Yeah.
A lot of decline.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there's a number of, I mean, there's been like Twilight Zone episodes about that kind of thing,
Yeah.
some of them have kind of like a Rip Van Winkle storyline to it, where somebody was just, they wake up one day and everything's gone or
Yeah.
different. And I guess you could kind of say that it is true. I mean, a number of people do say sometimes you can never go home again.
Yeah, that's an old line from a book.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember the name of the book now, but that's the theme of it. You
Mm-hmm.
can never go home again, meaning things are never the same. And it happens to every generation.
Mm-hmm.
One generation passes and there's a new one. So
Right.
that's
Right.
how it is.
The
Yeah.
tradition, the thing is, the fiber of the area change, the tradition changes.
Yeah.
Sometimes things that were big and important to people growing up, years ago are gone now. Those institutions change, you
Mhm.
know. It's and I can get, kind of, and again, I'm kind of giving examples of how I identify with what you've said here. You go through and you see even places like churches boarded up.
They're closing a lot of them in Baltimore City.
Yeah. Houses being torn down and boarded up. Abandoned areas, almost like a ghost town. The only thing missing is the tumbleweeds and the horse skeleton that collapses when you walk by,
Right. Right. I
Right.
grew up in the Hamilton area,
Yeah.
northeast Baltimore
Hmm.
City.
Right.
And so yeah, that's really, the song is about that, about
Hmm.
when I'm here, when I go back.
And the thing is too is that I really liked what you did with in terms of the video itself. Um, the sounds of this song with the vocals in it and the instrumentation and the imagery that you put in there, from a lot of the footage at the beginning, it was kind of from, not only of you, I guess, but of the era you were growing up in, and it kind of went through time, and it
Mhm.
really fit together well, I thought, as like a this is your life type of thing. Tell
Yeah.
us about, I guess, some of the places and the people that are in the video, because you really did kind of make this semi autobiographical.
Yeah, it's pictures of family members, me and my parents, aunts, uncles, cousins,
Mhm.
friends, former bandmates.
Oh yeah.
Everybody that I put in the video was of someone that was significant to me
Hmm.
at some point in my life. Yeah. So that's the pictures of the little kids in the early on, they're my cousins.
Right.
I
Okay.
have
Okay.
several cousins, but they're the ones that I really spent a lot of time with as a kid.
Hmm. Well, and you had mentioned too that I know at least one of your cousins you performed with for a good while.
Yeah, Danny Young.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
in Silver Queen.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen him perform. I think he performed with us that one night in the coffee house, and a good player. Definitely a
Yeah.
good player.
Yeah.
I think, didn't you tell me that he left to join the Navy or something?
Yeah, in 1979.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, because it looked like there was a group of four of you.
That's them.
That's the cousins. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looked like was it Easter or something? You're all wearing your suits and
It probably was. And I was trying to figure out, would that have been an Easter or Christmas picture or what? I
mhm.
think it was Easter because of no one was wearing heavy clothing.
Yeah, that's what I would think too.
So I think it was probably Easter time.
Right, right. But that was the thing, is that a lot of the other footage that you had in there was, you're not from Baltimore, especially from, the time I grew up and when you grew up. If you don't remember downtown, the department stores.
Yeah.
And I think it was pretty much right off the bat, you had a good, image of, a city bus with, I think it was Stewart's in the background, maybe, or
I think it was.
Shavitz.
Yeah.
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 Quite in, those are, were definite institutions of the time. And, and then later on, as the video progressed, kind of moved through life, then you had some imagery in there a little bit later on that just wasn't, almost kind of made it look like things come to a crashing and burning end there.
Well, unfortunately, the city has declined considerably. And, that's the result of poor government.
Yeah.
That's who controls those factors.
Yeah, I would say.
And so it does start out, with me as a little kid, and the people that were in my life at that time when when we were all young like that.
Right.
And different people, and not just family, but I mean other people that I became acquainted with over the years that are also in the video. Different people will come into your life, and you don't realize how influential some of them will turn out to be. Still a longer passage of time. Then you look back and you think, if they weren't there in my life, who would have been in their place? And I think about this with people I've played with in bands, family members, lots of different situations. You don't usually, nobody decides who's going to come into their life. They just they show up.
You're right. You're right.
And the question is whether or not you keep them around. Do you play in a band with them? Do you remain an acquaintance of theirs? And do they choose to stay?
Sure. Yeah.
As well. So there were people that I put in the video. Like I say, everybody had some significance. And there were 4 people in particular that I never, in my other videos, it wasn't the place to recognize them, because
Sure.
it didn't have anything to do with the video.
Right. Right.
Where this video does. This is a video where I would say, now it's worth mentioning. And now's the time to acknowledge some of these people.
Sure.
That
Sure.
were influential. One of them, and never thought of the significance of this at the time, but there's 4 people that really come to mind. And again, they're not the 4 most significant people in my life of all time, but they were significant in my musical portion of my life. And also they were great friends, and some of them still are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, of these 4 people that I'm talking about, 3 of them have passed.
Oh, yeah.
But the other people, there's other people in the video that haven't. But in terms of the 4 that I thought really needed and deserved some recognition, one of them was a guy named Mike Cantor. I met him in high school. We were a year apart. We had a mutual friend, and that's how I got to know him.
Yeah.
When I was putting the Silver Queen together, he's the one that said to me, "What are you going to do for lights? Do you have a light man?" I never gave it a thought, really.
Right, right.
And he said, well, he'd like to do lights for us. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And so he told me pretty much what to get. And I went out and bought the materials, and I built these little light boxes. They were very unsophisticated.
Right, right, right. Well,
But
a
they
lot of
did the
people
job.
did.
We were 17 years old.
Sure, yeah,
just getting started. So they did the job. A little while later, I don't know, maybe a year or so. I'm not sure the passage of time now. But he ended up getting another set of lights, a better set.
Sure, yeah.
So, and he was with us for several years.
Right, right.
And really contributed a lot to the appearance, because nobody in the band at that time, when we were getting close to being ready to play out, nobody at that time had ever said, hey, what are we going to do about lights?
Yeah, I know.
It really just hadn't occurred to us, but it did him.
And the other thing too is that at those times it really wasn't until later on where clubs always had the house lights, house PA. I mean, I can remember
sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, when I was in high school, I befriend. That's actually how I met you, through some friends. I befriended some older friends of mine that used to let me hang around and watch and learn. But the payment for that, or the exchange for that, was lugging that community PA up and down steps and in and out of clubs with them at the end of the night. And after a while, some of the clubs said, well, maybe we could get our own stuff and make it a little easier, but in those days, I tell you what, you had your work cut out for you with that. And and there was a sound man and a light man. But early on, when you didn't have resources, you learned how to do these things yourself.
Yeah. And Mike and I, again, we met in high school. We ended up being friends,
right,
all the way up into our early 50s. And he passed in 2007.
Yeah,
but we ended up remaining friends till the end. All that time.
Yeah. So one thing that you and I talk about, whenever we just have a conversation, is I've been in entertainment and different different genres for years. You too, the bands, the projects and everything. There's always something. Nothing can ever go smoothly. It seems like there's always a bump in the road. There's always something that just the wheels fall off the wagon somehow, and you just got to dust off and rub some dirt on it and keep moving.
There will always be a train wreck.
Yes, exactly. It must have been frustrating for you, and I've had my own frustrations as well in the endeavors I've been in, dealing with band members, sometimes with actors, sometimes with and anybody else that a club owner, a venue owner, something like that. And it seems like it's always back to the drawing board. I think I've been back to the drawing board maybe as many times as you. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is. It is frustrating. Over the time when I was putting bands together, some of them worked out, some of them didn't. The one thing was I was able to keep progressing with my original material.
Yes.
And that's the main benefit from it. And I'll tell you, a couple of people that were very influential with that. When I left Silver Queen, that was what I wanted to do. I was like, we got to do original material, but that really wasn't their forte, and there was no interest in it, from the other members. And so anyway, as soon as I left, I started working. We did one original of mine in Silver Queen. But as soon as I left, I just started. That's all I did was write music, work on that. And there was I was putting a band together. It was one of these bands that never got out of the basement, never went anywhere. Too many personality disorders in the band. So, yeah. So anyway, it never went anywhere. But there's a friend of mine, Steve Diffendahl, and I knew him, but I wasn't friends with him. I just knew him. We kind of knew who each other were. And he knew somebody that was in that band I'm talking about. So he would come over sometimes to practice. Anyway, when I left that band, he contacted me. He came over to my house and wanted to put a band together, and I really wasn't interested. And he came back a couple times, and he'd always have his bass guitar, and he'd say, let's just play, let's just play. So one day we did, and it clicked immediately.
Right.
Immediately. And we were writing songs right off the bat, and they sounded really, really good. And then he said, well, I know a drummer, and that was a guy by the name of Fred Layfield. And so he brings him over. And the three of us sounded awesome. Doing original material, it just completely clicked. And this is one of the situations about maybe 6 months after I got to know Fred, he was killed. He was hit by a car and killed.
Oh, geez.
And, Danny was in that band, but we had not played out. And then that's around the time when Danny left to join the Navy. A couple weeks after he left, this is in 1979, Fred was killed. So, we got a new drummer and we got a new guitar player, and the band became Edward Teach, which was named after the pirate Blackbeard.
Okay.
We played one job doing all original material. We played a concert at Essex Community College.
Great.
And it was soon after that, Steve moved to California, where he still lives. I still talk to him all the time. We've always remained in contact, great friends. Been out to California a few times to visit him over the years. And Fran was in that band also.
Okay.
So anyway, after he moved, things in the band they were not going anywhere. It ended up folding. Fran and I reformed another group, but one of the things we found out, even though we had recordings that we had made with Fred on drums and Steve on bass, the new players did not have the same feel, the same groove. They could not do it. They could not replicate what those two did. And it's even with them working off of recordings. And it's like, just play it like it is on the recording.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't sound right. It never had the same feel. So that's when I realized that really the drums and the bass in a rock band is what makes it.
Yes. Yeah.
Because prior to that, especially with doing original material, because prior to that, all my experience had been playing cover music. And when somebody would leave, you just got somebody else in that could play the cover material. And it was plug in a new member type of thing.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't difficult. When you're writing the music and you have those individuals' personal style and technique on them, it's a world of difference.
Yes.
So Fran and I ended up putting together what became Tail Gunner. And many of the songs that we had done, original songs in Edward Teach, we stopped doing them because we just didn't like the way they sounded.
Sure, yeah.
And Tail Gunner did a blend of cover and original, but it did a lot of original, but it had a totally different sound. We were not trying to recreate Edward Teach any longer. It couldn't be done. So That's what led to the birth of Tail Gunner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
that's what came out of that.
Those of you listening at home have heard Tail Gunner on the back of the rack. We've spun a couple of songs, Sassy for one. And
yeah,
that and it's gotten a good response too. I really like the sound of that.
Yeah, so Tail Gunner put out a 45. We've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
The song Sassy, and then the other side was called 10 Years. To this day, Sassy gets a lot of views. It's over 500 views
Mm-hmm.
on the website and on the YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a retro sounding song because it was written in the late 70s.
Right.
But it's getting listened to.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me a lot of, among other things, it reminds me a lot of earlier UFO.
Okay.
And I guess that's one of those things that's kind of in the ear of the beholder, but it does remind me. It does have the bass and drums and the groove of it. They just kind of remind me of that sound, the Pete Way. And God, the drummer escapes me, but what they had like around the rock bottom era.
Yeah, it's was written in that era.
Yeah,
the influence. Yeah.
Yep. And it's a great song. The vocals on it are good. Of course, guitar playing is exemplary, right?
Well, the vocals are Fran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The guitar player, I mean, the opening and the main riff throughout the song is me.
Yeah.
We had a guy named Dean Manna who played the lead on that.
Oh, okay. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've mentioned him before. I think maybe other interviews or at least in our conversations. And that was like I said, that's a great song, and people have asked me about it too when I've spun it on 97 Underground, and it holds up. I mean, what can you say? It holds up.
Yeah, it's retro, but it does hold up.
It does. It really is. It's a good song, and so
well,
the things in your working relationship, again, from I guess after that band, I guess was what was next after Tail Gunner?
Tail Gunner was pretty successful. It played out a lot.
Yeah.
We had the 45 out.
Mm-hmm.
It was around that time. I forget the exact year now, but it was around that time when Sassy was chosen to be on that Baltimore compilation album.
Was it the one radio station?
I think it was WKTK.
Maybe. Oh yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
They put out a compilation album of Baltimore bands, and we were selected to be on that.
Yeah.
The song Sassy was on that. So anyway, the band did well. It played around quite a bit. It eventually, combination of I don't know, just personality disorders.
Don't I know it?
And just maybe some of the people were just getting on each other's nerves. Maybe anyway. There've been so many of them that some of it's a kind of a burnout. Like I don't really remember what the definitive event was that the group ended. I just remember at one point Fran and I decided to leave. I don't remember what precipitated that, but I think it's probably just not happy with the way things were going with it. So that was the end of that. I don't remember the time. I don't remember the year, but it was somewhere after that. Fran moved to California.
Oh, right.
And he was out there for a few years, and then he returned to Maryland. You'd have to ask him how many years he lived out there because I don't remember now. But I went on to put another band together, and the guitar player in that band was the fourth person I mentioned. There were four people. I think I said four at the beginning of this conversation, and I said This person I'm talking about now, Dave Bradley, incredible guitar player. I was putting a new band together. He answered the ad for the guitarist, got him in the band. We ended up that band ended up playing out too. Bob Knight was in that band.
Oh, good old Bob.
Yeah. So that was where we all came together. That's when I met Bob, when he joined that band putting together. It was called Axis Sally.
Okay.
That was the name of that band. And we played a few times, not a huge amount, but well, more than a few times. But anyway, Dave, I ended up becoming very good friends with. We used to do a lot of outdoor stuff like canoeing, kayaking. We went caving.
You're nuts.
Went hiking on the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, good grief. That's
we were
on the surface, it sounds rather benign, but you can get into some stuff doing that.
I tell you what, caving.
No,
thank you. That is a dicey experience.
Yes, it is.
Because you walk into the cave, but it quickly narrows down, and caving usually involves crawling through tubes.
Yes, which is something I'm never doing, but you can.
And it was a little edgy at times.
Yeah.
So anyway, we like doing that sort of stuff. And so we ended up becoming friends even after the band years. And he moved to Nashville.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
This the same fellow that you went kayaking to Carroll Island with?
No, that was a different guy.
Oh, geez, a whiz, man. I tell you.
That guy, and we didn't canoe or kayak. He had an inflatable
that's right.
raft.
Oh God.
And we paddled across the shipping lane there by the Key Bridge and paddled out to Carroll Island and climbed up on the debris of the place by the front entrance of it.
Yeah.
And we got up on there and we carried the raft in with us because we couldn't leave the water that drifted away. And I mean, we could have tied it up, but we didn't really want it to be that obvious that we were in there. So we end up walking across these narrow beams to go in, and we carrying the inflatable raft. Now, that was a friend of mine, no musical connection. I met him when I was in scuba diver training.
Sure.
Which is another thing I used to do. So that's where how that event came about. So, and who that was, but he was no musical connection. His name was Jack.
Okay.
But no musical connection. Strictly
right.
I ended up getting partnered up with him when I was in the training class.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But Dave Bradley, the guitar player, he died at 61 from cancer. Yeah, just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So, but he ended up living in Nashville. He moved out there. He went to Vanderbilt, got his master's degree. Got married, has 3 kids.
Sure.
And stayed there,
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Well, that's good. That's I tell you, the experiences that you end up having with some of your bandmates over the years. And again, too, I mean, it sounds like you've really got some wild ones that had nothing to do with playing or anything like that. Just the stuff that you do outside of it. It sounds like if you've ever heard the Mr. Ballin podcast.
No,
we won't go down that rabbit hole here, but I'll tell you about it offline. It sounds like something you might really enjoy. But he has a lot of stories about caving, scuba diving, and they're enough to make you cringe because of things that go horribly wrong. But like I said, we won't take your interview time discussing that, but I'll show it to you later.